We're here to announce a significant takedown of two gangs that operate in the northern part of Brooklyn. The two street gangs that I'm referring to in this case are called Woo and Choo.
Spells, Woo Caine, folks, Caine,
that's shit.
Caine, all that Caine, everything Caine.
Choo Caine, GD Caine, we invented all that. 6 straight K, all that. 6 straight toast. They know who invented that.
We believe that these two gangs have been the source of much of the gun violence in parts of Brooklyn North.
I'm not really into that drill shit, bro. A lot of niggas that rap that drill shit don't really drill shit, bro.
Big GDK, Top 9, Dodge World, shooting anything, spinning.
19-year-old Jeffrey Alexander allegedly shot and killed 30-year-old Ladarian Tyrell Phillips of Homestead.
Nick Blixey was discovered with gunshot wounds on Winthrop Street in Prospect Lefferts Gardens.
Police say 20-year-old Bashar Jackson, who went by Pop Smoke, was gunned down when several suspects broke in to rob him.
In 2019, Brooklyn drill took the world by storm when Pop Smoke hit the mainstream with songs like Welcome to the Party and Dior. But the movement had roots reaching back as far as 2014. It was the soundtrack to a huge war in the borough and had an extremely active scene. Countless songs were traded back and forth, bodies dropped, and cases were caught. Fans watched intensely, and big YouTube channels covered and reported on all the details. Big artists emerged and grew to be more than drill rappers, and the movement as a whole single-handedly put the city of New York, the birthplace and former mecca of hip-hop, back on the map in terms of relevance in the genre. So in this video, we'll take a look at the rise of Brooklyn drill. Hip-hop started in New York, and the city was the center of the rap world through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But in the early 2000s, their hold on the genre began to slip. 50 Cent was the last big New York rapper to touch the top of the rap game, and after him, the South took over. Through the late 2000s, New York was extremely quiet. Then around 2011, A$AP Rocky blew up, and New York had a star again. The city as a whole still wasn't really a factor in the new era of hip-hop, but over in Brooklyn in 2012, Joey Badass dropped 1999 and blew up in the underground, and groups like Pro Era, Flatbush Zombies, and the Underachievers were creating a scene and establishing a new lyrical 90s influenced sound combined with elements of the late 2000s and early 10s rap music. And this was what Brooklyn was known for to most hip hop heads around the time. But there was a darker, more violent side to the borough. In the 90s and early 2000s, Brooklyn had been a melting pot for various gangs across the country, and by the early 10s was the home to various Blood, Crip, and Gangsta Disciple factions, many of whom had bloody conflicts going on with one another. One of these Crip sets was called GS9, and in 2014, a GS9 member called Bobby Shmurda dropped a song called Hot Nigga, and the song blew up to become one of the biggest songs of the decade. Suddenly, Bobby Shmurda was a mainstream household name, and the streets of Brooklyn had a voice. Some consider Bobby Shmurda to be the creator of Brooklyn drill, and some don't. There's an ongoing debate about what classifies as Brooklyn drill, and many believe that the music Bobby made wasn't Brooklyn drill, and therefore he wasn't the creator. There's a good argument for this because although he rapped about drill topics, the production of his music wasn't drill. Bobby was mainly rapping on the underground late 2000s, early 10s Meek Mill style beats. Computers by Rowdy Rebel was definitely a Chicago drill beat, but that's just one song. Whether or not Bobby Shmurda and Rowdy Rebel were drill artists, they were the first New York rappers to see big success making gangsta music in over a decade. They put eyes on this side of the city and kicked down the door for the next generation of Brooklyn artists to come up. Unfortunately, their run was cut short when they caught their case. However, the city wasn't down for long because in 2015 a new crop of rappers had popped up, and this generation was rapping on Chicago drill beats. Bam Bino, Money Mills, Curly Savv, and Dada were all rappers out of Brooklyn who started making music around 2015. In November, they dropped a song called Gang Gang Gang, which some New Yorkers credit with putting the New York drill scene on the map. The song was a big hit in the city and got their names buzzing and people anticipating what they would do next. This whole new wave was hosted on a single YouTube channel called Flowtastic TV. This was the primary platform of the new emerging scene at the time and would continue to post big Brooklyn drill songs here and there in the following years. In 2016, things continued to take off. Bam Bino, Curly Savv, and Dada were popping off the success of Gang 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 and dropping more songs that were seeing success in the city. In addition to Curly and Dada, another rapper from Canarsie called Rah Swish also joined the new drill movement and was collaborating with them as well as dropping big songs of his own. Up until this point, the trend had been set of rapping on Chicago drill beats and a scene had been created, but similar to Chicago in 2010, the city didn't have their own unified sound. But this was about to change. Ironically, their unique sound wouldn't really be unique at all, only to Americans. UK drill had been a thing since 2013, and groups like 6'7", 150, and the Section Boys had helped to popularize it. In the beginning of UK drill, the sound was heavily inspired by a producer from Chicago called DJ L, who made his name producing the majority of G Herbo and Lil Baby's early hits. From the beginning of drill, DJ L beats had an unorthodox rhythm that L had created using snares in a pattern nobody else was doing to create his own unique bounce. Producers from London took this bounce, and as the years progressed, they added their own unique style to it, swapping out 808s for bass, adding bass and 808 slides, as well as grime hits, and delaying the snare that usually fell on the 4. For the 16-year-old UK lads who are about to go to the comments and tell me that I'm wrong and Chicago got the sound from the UK, here's what a DJ L beat sounded like in 2012.
Them niggas from that gang way of putting work. No problem, only your conscience to get you hurt.
I know these haters mad, but I'ma make them mad up. I think I hit the lot and bump this fucking jack up.
UK producers obviously did a lot to make the sound their own, and it came a long way from this all the way to Pop Smoke, but in 2016 the sound was still very similar to DJ L's original style. Around this time, many UK producers were releasing beats titled DJ L Lil Herb type beat, and this was how New York rappers ended up stumbling across the UK sound. The first instances of Brooklyn rappers on UK drill beats happened around early 2016. This was around the time 22G started his career, and his earliest song on YouTube, titled Blicky, was released on April 28th of 2016. It was produced by a UK producer called Caine on the beat, and some would argue it was the first instance of a Brooklyn rapper rapping on a UK beat. Another early song featuring one of these types of beats was Ville Shit Part 2 by Bam Bino. As far as what Brooklyn and New York drill is known across the world as today, 2016 was basically the beginning. During the year, the sound was floating around the city, but it needed a push to become the sound of New York. The group most responsible for pushing it was the Blickies. Through 2016, they continued putting out music and growing the buzz. Then in October, they had a song called Up Next take off a little bit in the city, and this record was also on the UK drill beat. By late 2016, they were on the verge of taking the entire Brooklyn drill scene over. In December, 22G's dropped a song called Suburban, and it was an underground hit. The track blew up and turned 22G's into the hottest rapper in the Brooklyn drill movement. It also popularized the trend of Brooklyn rappers hopping on UK drill DJ L type beats. The beat for Suburban was made by a producer called Axel Beats, who was only 15 years old at the time. Around this time, there were several big producers uploading DJ L, Lil Herb, UK drill style beats like Jamaica and KXT beats. But the success of Suburban would lead to basically every rapper in Brooklyn going to Axel for beats. Brooklyn drill was a good example of the power of YouTube and type beats because it was the first time in history rappers in the city almost exclusively got their beats from outside the city. Going into 2017, Brooklyn drill started to heat up. 22G's and the Blickies were the first group to get poppin', but they had a lot of enemies. 2017 was the year gang politics would begin to reflect heavily in the music scene. The main focus of the Brooklyn drill movement was Woo vs. Choo, and both of these gangs started in Brownsville. The Choo movement originated in Brownsville, originally starting as a gang called the Hood Stars that had beef with another Brownsville gang called Wave Gang. The Hood Stars grew into a conglomerate called Choo, containing mostly Gangsta Disciples and a couple Crip sets, and Wave Gang grew into a conglomerate called Woo, containing a variety of Crip and Blood neighborhoods. Woo even ended up spreading outside of Brownsville to areas like Flatbush and Canarsie. The spread didn't happen immediately, and some hoods such as Canarsie, aka Flossie, didn't turn Woo until 2017, which explains why in 2015 and 2016 there were collaborations between Curly Savv, Dada, and Bam Bino. Even though Curly Savv and Dada are from the Flossie, which is now Woo, and Bam Bino is from Howard, which has been Cho the whole time. There are plenty of other gang conglomerates outside of Woo and Cho, like Structure and 2605, but Woo vs. Cho was the main focus of Brooklyn drill. Even in the Woo vs. Cho war, affiliations are confusing, and there might be gangs beefing with Woo gangs from Flossie but not from Brownsville or vice versa. Despite these confusing associations, basically every Woo gang from Flatbush, Canarsie, and Brownsville, as well as Crips with no Woo association, had beef with the Blickies. The Blickies aren't a part of Cho, but they're allied with them because they're gangsta disciples, just like most of the Cho sets. While the Blickies were at the forefront of the drill scene, they would occasionally diss their ops, and after 22 G's blew, many rival Crip and Blood neighborhoods saw an opportunity to gain clout and attention from dissing the Blickies, as well as respond to shots already thrown at them. In January, former 6ix9ine associate Kuda B dropped a song called Blicky Funeral. Next, in March, Young Costamato dropped an extremely disrespectful song called Folk in the Trunk, which he even shot in front of the Blickies' territory at Ebbets Field. And Leaf Els dropped an even bigger song called No Twirl Zone, also dissing the Blickies, who were also referred to as the Twirlers. The Blickies had been in a lot of beefs throughout Brooklyn, but now dissing them was starting to get trendy. Even though people were starting to get attention dissing him and his gang, none of these rappers were doing the numbers 22 G's was doing at the time. Him and the Blickies had the most buzz in the city, and even had people like Zach TV traveling all the way from Chicago just to interview them. No other underground rappers in the city were as big as 22 G's, but this was about to change.
We don't spend it no Suburbans, walk up on it just to hurt them. Grinding it up for the purging.
Sheff G was a member of the moving gang A-Tray Crips in Flatbush, a group who had a long-standing beef with the Blickies. He had sat back and watched Tutu and the Blickies blow up and occasionally diss his gang, and after a year, decided it was his turn. In May of 2017, he dropped an official response to 22 G's smash hit Suburban, and Sheff's version was called No Suburban. When he dropped this, Sheff was only a month into rap, still relatively unknown, and not fully committed to making music. But the song went crazy, reaching 1 million views in a matter of months, and it even went on to pass Suburban in views, and at the time of this video, it's sitting at around 13 million. Now the Blickies had an op who had gotten just as big as them, and to make matters even worse, a week after No Suburban dropped, 22 G's got locked up in Miami and charged for a body that his homie caught. So not only did their opposition blow up on the scene, they lost the face of their movement when they needed him the most. With 22 G's out the picture, Sheff became the new hottest rapper on the scene, dropping songs like Disrespect, Haters Hurtin', and Panic, continuing to diss the Blickies along the way. He shared his new clout with his friend Sleepy Hollow by featuring him at every chance he got, and together they were running Brooklyn drill. While Tutu was gone, Nas and Nick Blicky did their best to keep the Blickies afloat, but Tutu was the face of the movement, and without him, things were different. With the rise of Sheff G and other ops of the Blickies, there were now two big sides and a complete drill scene had formed. The fans of this scene wanted someone from the city who knew what was going on to interview these rappers and ask the questions people wanted to know. Mel's TV ended up stepping up to the plate. He was like the Zach TV of Brooklyn. He interviewed basically all the rappers regardless of their side or affiliation, and he became the biggest media figure in the new Brooklyn drill movement. He had been the first to interview 22 G's after he blew up and covered the situation while he was locked up. In November, 22 G's charges were dropped and he returned home to get back to the music. However, by this time, things had changed from late 2016 to early 2017. He found himself fighting for control of the movement with more and more enemies, some as big as him. But there were a couple rappers from the same side as 22 G's taking off as well. In October, PNV Jay blew up off his song Twirlin', and although he was from the Bronx and not an actual Blicky member, he ended up becoming one of the leaders of the GD and Cho movement on the music scene. In addition to PNV Jay, a Blicky member named MV Caine, who had been rapping since 2016, also began to take off in 2017, and together these two, as well as 22 G's and the rest of the Blickies, were representing their side musically. But as time went on, more and more of their ops would continue to blow. In 2018, the back and forth disses continued and more people started to tune in. In March, Jay Dee, D-Savv, and Fivio dropped Blicky in a Box, another hit produced by Axel Beats, and the song blew up to become a huge GDK anthem. Jay Dee got the most shine from the record, and the ops also went at him the most, and 22G's, Nick Blicky, and PNV Jay all dissed him frequently after this song. So by 2018, the movement was looking very similar to the early years of Chicago drill, but there was one big difference. The Brooklyn drill scene had dances. The Blickies had created the Blicky Twirl in 2017, and the dance Canarsie would popularize and brand as the Woo Walk came around in 2018, and this was the origin of the dance later referred to as getting sturdy. New York is full of West Indians, and it's in their culture to party, dance, and have fun, and you can see this in New York drill culture since the early days of the Shmurda dance and the Millie Rock. Through 2018, Sheff G and 22G's were the hottest drill rappers, but 22G's ended up moving away from the drill sound he pioneered, still continuing to do numbers on tracks like his Set Trippin' remix and Spin the Block. Sheff G remained on the drill sound, and he and Sleepy Hollow were doing numbers on songs like Panic Part 2 and 3, Disrespect, and Play for the Members. Eli Frost was also seeing success as well on songs like Situations and Gorillas. 2018 was also the year Pop Smoke would start dropping music. His first ever song was actually a remix to one of Sleepy Hollow and Sheff G's popular songs called Panic Part 3. The beat for this song was from a producer called 808 Mello, and Pop would almost exclusively work with him through the future. Pop was a well-known Woo member from the Flossy before he ever started rapping, and had people tuned in as soon as he started. Similarly to 2012 for Chicago, 2019 would be the year the world was introduced to Brooklyn drill. From 2016 to 2019, the UK sound had continued to evolve and distinguish itself from DJ L, and to those not familiar with its origins, it would seem completely new. Pop Smoke started the year strong and quickly built a buzz, dropping songs like Flexin' and Meet the Woo. Then in May, he dropped Welcome to the Party, a track produced by 808 Mello, and the song took off and went beyond the city and had people across the country listening to Pop Smoke's music. He dropped his debut album Meet the Woo in July, and this continued his momentum because the album had a song called Dior that was even bigger than Welcome to the Party, and it went on to get millions of views and streams. By this point, it was undeniable that Pop Smoke was the king of New York. Alongside him, Fivio Foreign, another Woo artist, also found himself in the mainstream when his hit Big Drip took off in August. With Pop Smoke and Fivio Foreign being the biggest artists in Brooklyn, Woo was basically running the music in the city. Pop Smoke was helping out OG artists from his hood like Rah Swish and Curly Savv by doing songs and features with them, and Fivio Foreign did the same thing for artists from his hood like Fetty Luciano and Sosa Geek, who were already hot off their song Woo Walk and continued doing big numbers throughout 2019. And even outside of Woo, other Brooklyn artists were seeing their careers flourish. This same year, the world found out Luka Doncic had a twin from the trenches of Brownsville. Maxthademon started to blow up with songs like 4 Quarters, Speak on It, and World War III. He obviously didn't look like the typical drill rapper, and this caught the world by surprise and allowed him to go viral quickly. Another rapper from the same hood as Max, called Ciggy Blacc, was also beginning to see motion and had several big records alongside Max. One of the biggest Brooklyn drill rappers to take off in 2019 was Bizzy Banks. Bizzy had been rapping for about a year, but in 2019 he dropped songs like Don't Start and Ready or Not, and these songs ended up taking off, and even into 2020 and 2021, he would stay one of the most lit artists in the city. Despite all the motion Brooklyn drill was seeing in 2019, this was basically the year Sheff G and Sleepy Hollow stepped away from the sound. In May, Sheff and Sleepy went in a new direction when they dropped a song called Flows on an instrumental they found on YouTube, originally titled as a J. Cole type beat. The song was very successful, and after this point, both of these artists would continue to diverge from the drill sound. They teamed up with a producer called Great John and pioneered their own sound that had some drill elements but was slower, more melodic and vibey, and completely different from the music they blew up off of in 2017. 22G's had already stepped away from the drill sound in 2018, and in 2019 he dropped his first ever project, the Blicky Tape, and didn't have a single drill beat on the entire project. So in 2019, Pop Smoke took Brooklyn drill to the mainstream, and Fivio Foreign followed along with his own mainstream hit. 22G's, Sheff G, and Sleepy Hollow stepped away from the scene, and new artists like Maxthademon, Ciggy Blacc, and Bizzy Banks took off. 2020 looked like it had the potential to be another big year for Brooklyn drill, But early in the year, the scene took the biggest loss possible. In February of 2020, Pop Smoke lost his life to a home invasion at an Airbnb in LA. Pop Smoke had begun his career in 2018 and first blown up in May of 2019. And in the short 9-month period between Welcome to the Party and his death, he had become the face of Brooklyn drill. So him passing so early after he blew up would have been the equivalent of Chief Keef passing in January of 2013. The loss of Pop Smoke would obviously hurt Brooklyn drill, but in the short term, after an artist loses their life, the amount of coverage and publicity they get temporarily boosts their views, streams, and everything associated with them. This was the case with Pop Smoke, and after his passing, his fame took off at a crazier rate than ever before. The boost in attention on Pop Smoke translated to the entire Brooklyn drill scene for all artists involved to benefit off of. In 2020, more and more YouTube channels started covering the Woo vs. Choo beef, and more fans who had never listened to Brooklyn drill ever before were starting to tune in. One of the rappers to benefit from this new attention on the scene was actually one of Pop's rivals. Coach the Ghost was a rapper from Brownsville and one of the founding members of the Hood Stars, the gang that would eventually grow into the Choo movement. He had been rapping since 2017 when he was released from prison, but he got his big break in April of 2020 when he dropped a song called Hit List, where he dissed basically all of his ops, including Fivio Foreign, Jay Guapo, Young Costamato, and Jay Dee. On the song, he had a line aimed at Jay Guapo where he said, "And if you get money, then why you condoning the same that got Pop Smoke?" And many people took this to be a diss aimed at Pop Smoke, which made the song even more viral. The song blew up and he quickly became one of the leaders of the Choo side of the drill scene. Another Choo rapper from Brownsville called Freshy Dageneral also began to get a name in 2020 off songs like Look and Ride. Together, he and Coach will hold down the Choo movement on the music scene. Over on the Woo side, Fivio Foreign continued doing his thing and getting new looks off bandwagons who missed their chance to work with Pop Smoke and wanted the next best option. He suddenly found himself doing big features with legends like Drake and Nas. In 2020, 22G's continued to put on for the Blickies who had taken a big loss when Nick Blicky was gunned down in May. 22G's hadn't really rapped on the Brooklyn drill sound since 2018, but in 2020 he decided to return and continue his role as the leader of the movement, continuing to drop big songs like Blicky Gang Freestyle and Fallen Blickies, as well as another project called Growth and Development. Sheff and Sleepy remain on their own wave, perfecting their new sounds, and weren't looking back. Towards late 2020, several artists from Pop Smoke's hood did their best to continue his legacy. In August, Dusty Locane dropped Rollin' and Controllin', and Quelly Wu dropped Back Out. Both of these rappers were from Canarsie and had unusually deep voices just like Pop Smoke. And Dusty even went as far as using the same slow flow Pop had popularized. All of these similarities caused Pop's fans to flock to their music quickly, and they blew up extremely fast. One of the biggest artists to come up in the post-Pop Smoke drill era was 26AR. He was a rapper from Crown Heights and began buzzing in late 2020 after dropping a song called Maneuver that ended up taking off. Alongside him, his homie Rocco Ballin also began to go up as well. So in 2020, despite the loss of Pop Smoke, the scene was very active and a lot of new artists took off. In 2021, things began to slow down. Most of the new rappers who were hot in 2020 began to see their numbers drop by the end of the year as fans got bored with the scene and began to turn their attention towards Bronx drill. But some of the more established rappers managed to stay afloat. Fivio Foreign transitioned to the mainstream with a decent amount of success. Sheff G and Sleepy Hollow had already diverged from drill and continued to maintain their relevance, even though jail time would end up slowing down both of their careers. 22G's would continue to hold on to the Brooklyn drill sound and see his numbers decline like the newer drill artists, only at a slower rate. Overall, the Brooklyn drill movement gave New York a voice in hip-hop again to remind the world of his former glory, while at the same time shining a light on the sound of the UK and allowing them to be a part of mainstream US hip-hop for the first time ever. The movement produced a lot of talented artists and big hits and will be remembered for a while. Alright, that's it for the video. Definitely go check out the Bronx drill video if you haven't seen that. That's basically the continuation to this story. And yeah, there's a new Discord, so if y'all like talking about hip-hop or anything hip-hop related, join that so you can talk with like-minded people or suggest video ideas if you want to. But besides that, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned.